Alright guys, welcome to the last full card breakdown of the year. Happy to see you guys here. How's everyone doing? YouTube is so super unreliable with what it makes you do to start the stream, it's kind of annoying. As soon as this card is over, I'm canceling ESPN Plus so fast. Yeah, same. I might even cancel it beforehand. I have to see when my subscription is up. Hey Gabriel. Hey Stelly. Probably gonna do that too? Yeah, it makes sense. It's just in case the timing is somewhere in between. Don't want to get charged for an extra month for no reason. Groden MMA content creator, thanks, I appreciate it. Hey Michael. Fraction just served me well, farewell soldier, valid. Alright guys, so we'll do the usual. I think we'll start with like 8 minutes of questions. I'll give you a brief update on the app I'm working on, and then we'll get into the breakdown. And then depending on how quickly that goes by or not, because this may end up being a shorter breakdown just because the quality of fights is a little bit lower, then we'll see what we do after. Degen, we getting in the Discord on the 6-week break, putting your coin on PFL? We'll have to see. Someone asked me to look at Ryzen, so I might do that. If there are good PFL events, we'll definitely do that as well. But yeah, we'll definitely do stuff. Did you see that Moreno is already back against Asu, I think? Yeah, it should be a very easy matchup for Moreno. I'm glad he's getting a kind of free one. Thoughts on Alexandre's performance against Begzot and him in general? I thought it was a pretty good performance. A lot of people didn't love it, but I actually thought that when you're fighting a power puncher as dangerous as Begzot, that's like pretty much the best you could do in a sense, right? Like even Umar did not look particularly good against Begzot. So I had no issues with it. I do think that Poirier needs to improve his calf kick defense a bit because he can't fight like Ilya, because he doesn't have Ilya's finishing ability and instincts. So he's going to have to be a little bit more technical about his leg kick defense for sure. Do street beats bets? I've never even like looked at street beefs before, but I can try. Prime Yoel or Hamzat? I think Yoel is a very bad matchup for Hamzat. You got Hollins or Neil? Probably Neil. Imagine putting your paycheck on street beefs. That would be crazy, yeah. Able to scroll and see my previous message. I don't see a message from you other than what's up. I don't know if something got like auto-censored or something weird. I'm worried bad for Royval's health. He was wearing that bullshit on his head before Van had a concussion, which pulled out beforehand. I hope he doesn't downfall. Yeah, I do think he should have taken a break, so it's unfortunate that he's back so quickly, but it is what it is. They make their choices. Taporia says he does that spin when getting calf kicked to reduce impact. That's fine, but you still can't take that many of them. I'm not falling for that one, Stelly. That one's too obvious. Oliveira versus Bautista coming up. Who you got? Probably Bautista, because I don't like Oliveira is so lacking in technique that I feel like Bautista, who's maybe not as like blatantly talented, but is very technical, should just piece him up. Rufi or Frazeev? It's an interesting one. I'm not really sure, but my first instinct was to lean Rufi. I just have not been very impressed with Frazeev. Asked my buddies about Moreno versus Asu, and they're saying Asu gonna ragdoll him. Like, bro, Tyra is a different breed on the ground, doesn't mean Asu will. Yeah, no, there's a massive difference between Tyra and Asu. Moreno should be able to out-grapple Asu, in all honesty. I would not be surprised if Moreno subbed him. Best counter striker right now or of all time? I mean, Anderson Silva's up there for sure. Buccaneers hitting right now. Did anyone else bet? Did you bet Bucks Oracle? So I have Falcons plus 7.5 and Robinson touchdown together. Robinson got the touchdown, I believe. So I need Falcons to just not get blown out. I have no idea why they went for 2 there. Hopefully they score again. Thoughts on Seokyeon Ko? I think he's quite good. I do wish he had a bit more finishing ability, but his skill for skill, he's spectacular. Have you seen Imavov's video on his pad work lately? It looks crazy. Yeah, his hand speed is insane, especially for middleweight. Because he was able to wrestle Bahamondes to win. Rufi has much better fundamental takedown defense than Bahamondes, though. Like, I know a lot of people are going to look at last fight and be like, oh, BSD was able to take him down and sub him, so Fiziv's going to be able to take him down. But, like, Fiziv doesn't have the wrestling ability that BSD does for sure. Arco, what do you think of Daniil Doncello, who just won tough? I was not overly impressed, to be honest. It kind of seemed like he was a bit of a hook spammer. I mean, he had a good performance for the finals, but I need to see more on him to have any faith. Thoughts on lack of calf kick from Merab after he found so much success hurting Jan with it in the first fight. I talked about that in the recap a bit. I don't know what Merab was doing this fight. He just seemed like he was fighting purely off ego. Kape been pissing me off lately, talking smack about my goat Van like he doesn't pull out of 50% of his fights. Yeah, if Kape wasn't pulling out repetitively and wasn't talking so much, he would probably be a fan favorite because he is entertaining, but he's just so annoying sometimes. What's more likely, JDM beating Islam or DDP beating Chimaev in a rematch? I have more faith in DDP's ability to adapt, and I think that Chimaev has a massive weak point in the sense that he is always going to gas out later in fights. So if DDP is able to make enough adjustments that he makes it at least harder for Chimaev in rounds 1 to 3, I would not be surprised if the neck crank works in round 5 next time, if you get what I mean. I think Zombie Jr. can still be a future contender despite his loss. I mean, he's not very young is the problem. If he was younger, definitely. He still definitely has a chance, don't get me wrong, but he has to change a lot. I finally got here on time. Welcome in. Do you think Hooker will TKO Benoit? No, I don't. I think BSD will absolutely run through Hooker. The first time I saw a clip of Imavov's hand speed, I thought it was in 2x speed. Yeah, that's valid. I mean, it's crazy. Fiziv himself is very fast and disciplined in striking. Yes, Fiziv is a solid striker. It's just, there's something lacking. Bro, please tell me Merab. I don't know if there was supposed to be a continuation to that. Oh, okay. Next line. Wins the trilogy. It annoys me that everyone says Jan cracked the code and that he will be favored in the trilogy. Yeah, I do think that Merab wins the trilogy. I was not... I know that it looks like Jan had a good performance. I was not overly impressed with either fighter in that fight. I felt like Merab ego fought, and I was kind of surprised Jan couldn't put him away despite Merab fighting the exact fight you need to put him away. I realized I had to look more into injuries affecting skills after Uncle I vs. Pro 2, where Pro was 6. I can bet Jan at plus 400, very happy. Yeah, it worked out there. The problem is, fighters are always, or not always, but oftentimes going to claim excuse, so it's tough. What's your take on Jan's elbows to the forearm? Could this be a new meta to wear down and damage wrestlers? Okay, so it works against Merab because his control is not spectacular. I would not recommend just doing that against anyone, because that means you're not fighting the hands. So if it's a fighter who, if you let them just get their hands locked, you're in trouble, that's a very bad idea, because you're not dissuading them from locking their hands. Against Merab, it's a solid tactic, though. How do you rate Fiziv's boxing? Will struggle to land to his body and low kicks against Rufi's in and out movement style. I don't think Fiziv's boxing is spectacular. I mean, his striking as a whole is dangerous, but I don't think his boxing is anything crazy. Like, if Kape wins here, then Kape, Van, and Tyra are going to pass the belt around. I think Van beats Kape, Kape beats Tyra, and Tyra beats Van. Could see Tyra beating Kape, though. I don't think Kape could beat Tyra, to be honest. I think that Tyra is very dangerous right now, and is going to be a problem for anyone. Alright, I think we'll just get into the breakdown directly from here. We might as well go through it. It's probably going to be pretty fast. Alright. So I don't have notes for all of these fights. Did Falcon just fumble again? Okay, whatever. I don't have notes for all of these fights because some of them are last minute, but I will improv the ones that I do not have notes for. So the first fight is Jamie Lynn Horth versus Teresa Bleda. So one thing to immediately note is that Bleda has been out for 2 years because of injuries, infections, and so on. So that automatically throws a bit of this into question. But Bleda is a wrestler. She's mainly going to shoot double legs. She prefers to time a kick to shoot double legs. So the tactic against her, in my opinion, is to purely box. She will typically try to push you back to the fence, then lock her hands there, and then finish the takedown from it. She will add in a trip if necessary and kind of just switch between that and the traditional double legs. On the feet, she is extremely stiff. She's mainly just going to pump out jabs and some kicks. She has really bad defense, like impressively bad defense. She does have some power in the strikes she puts out, so it does dissuade people from just getting in the pocket very easily. But if you do get there, you can kind of just throw stuff and it will hit her. Horth is a bit hard to break down because she kind of just does stuff. And it's very hard to know what she's going to do because I don't think she knows what she's going to do. She'll just throw random kicks, punches in random different sequences without any logical pattern that I can find at the least. She tries to fight very tall, so she uses her distance relatively effectively. But in this fight, she is going to be at a height disadvantage, so this is going to be very uncommon for her. She is extremely slow. She switches stances a lot. She uses wrestling kind of as a backup, or if it's like very obviously there. So against Vanessa Demopoulos, or whatever her name is, she was basically just using wrestling because she can't stuff a takedown for her life. But typically speaking, she's not going to wrestle unless she really has to. She's pretty good at scrambling and defending against the fence, which is what makes this fight kind of interesting because Bleda is going to try to wrestle against the fence and Horth is pretty good at defending there. I do have to mildly lean towards Bleda because Horth is so reliant on her height and Bleda is taller here, but it's a low-level WMMA fight with a fighter who's been out for 2 years with infections and injuries, so don't put too much stock in that. But I'm taking Bleda by decision 29-28. All right. Next, we go from a sloppy WMMA fight to a sloppy heavyweight fight. So Alan Fry, it's very hard to say how he fights because there is extremely little tape on him. And by little tape, I mean like the one fight where we actually have full-blown tape, it's like filmed on a camera from a very bad angle. From what we can see though, he seems extremely fast and athletic. He does not have the greatest takedown defense, but he is very determined to get back to his feet every time he is taken down. His fundamentals are definitely questionable to say the least. He's a little bit of a brawler, but he definitely does like to fight. He's not afraid of taking a shot, and he does push a very heavy pace. Pat, on the other hand, is a much more technical striker. He is a karate striker at heavyweight, which is very uncommon to say the least. He is very jab and calf kick focused. He's not someone who's really going to get into a firefight. On the back foot, his defense is kind of atrocious. If you blitz him, you will land. Sometimes he will land a cross counter, but he doesn't really know what to do after that. So he doesn't have the ability to circle out, counter multiple times, move his head, etc. So if you just blitz in, you're probably going to catch him on the second, third, fourth shot, etc. He doesn't really have any urgency. So if you put his back on the fence, he will kind of just stay there. And especially if you take him down in like rounds 2 or 3, he's not going to have any real urgency to get back to the feet. He has an extremely pretty style, but the effectiveness is questionable because he doesn't seem to be able to operate within a firefight. So I do have to lean Fry because he's the fighter who's going to just bite down and throw stuff. Pat is the better fighter. Would it shock me if he lands at a counter and put Fry out? Not at all. But I think Fry is just going to push him to the fence, bully him there, land a few shots against the fence, and get him out there. So I'm going Fry TKO round 1. Are you sick? I don't think so, but I know my voice is a bit off. So yeah, I don't know. Sorry about that. Hey, Oracle, breakdowns are the best time of the week. Thanks for the stream. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Is the new UFC signed Emzov good? Any thoughts on him? We'll get to them when we get to the Magny fight. Alright. Groden versus Lana Santos. The beginning of this card is rough. We go from WMMA to sloppy heavyweight back to WMMA, but it is what it is. So Santos is, I don't want to say a pure judoka, but she's kind of close. Her biggest strength by far is the judo. Whenever you get into the clinch with her, she's going to be looking for throws, and then once she gets it down, she's going to look for submissions from there. On the feet, she mainly likes to poke at range with jabs and kicks. She changes her targets on the kicks a lot, so she'll throw to the leg, then the head, etc. Just basically try to confuse you there. When she does commit to striking, it is mainly overhands. She's just going to basically spam overhands if she gets you hurt, which did lead to the highlight in her first fight, which was kind of funny, but it's nothing overly technical. In the past, she relied pretty much purely on the judo throws, but she has integrated a bit more traditional wrestling takedowns now, so in her last fight, she was shooting more double legs and such. On the ground, she's definitely going to submission hunt. She doesn't really land much ground and pound in general. On the Groden side, she is a Muay Thai striker, and she really likes to get into the clinch and use her height to just blast knees repetitively. On the outside, she's just going to blast kicks, and she has gotten a little better at throwing heavy with her hands on the outside, but it definitely seems like it's not her preference. Her power is quite good for this division. Her striking defense is absolutely garbage. She seems to not know what striking defense is. If you throw combinations on her, they will land. Her takedown defense is also extremely questionable. She has not really stuffed many takedowns in general. She will be determined to scramble back to the feet, but she doesn't have like BJJ fundamentals, so she can definitely get caught there. Groden's reliance on the clinch is not a good idea against a judoka, in my opinion, because Santos should be able to turn those into takedowns. So I think Santos should get the fight down and get a sub here. If she does not get a sub, like in rounds 1 to 2, I could see Groden being live for a round 3 finish via the knees if like Santos slows down at all. But yeah, it feels like Groden's style is kind of just tailor-made for Santos to get a finish. Alright, moving on to Sharaf versus Asplund. So, Sharaf is a relatively well-rounded finisher, though all of his finishes are going to come in round 1. He will pressure with a jab, and then he'll shoot from there, or he'll throw when his opponent is against the fence. He throws a lot of hooks when his opponent is against the fence, especially the lead hook. All of his entries have been pretty much double legs. He did gas very badly in his last fight against Junior Tafa, but in all fairness to him, it was very short notice, and he wasn't a full-time fighter at the time, so heavyweights, you would hope that with the weight cut, with the lack of the weight cut, that they're always in somewhat decent shape, but the reality is it doesn't ever look like that, unfortunately. He definitely hits extremely hard, and if he gets the fight down, he's just going to try to smash her face in from there. He's not going to look for subs, he's not going to look for any control or anything extremely educated, he's just going to unload with power. Asplund is a heavyweight cardio striker, so mainly he's looking to prolong the fight past the first rounds, wait until his opponent slows down, and then put them away from there. Most of his wins are, of course, from his opponent slowing down, despite the fact that in the Contender Series he did get a quick finish. He will throw a lot of calf kicks on the outside, try to slow you down from there, and it helps him avoid committing to anything early because he really does not like to fight in the pocket early. His takedown defense is kind of atrocious, and on the ground he doesn't really have anything. Denzel Freeman, the guy who had like a staring contest with Mark Bulio or whatever his name was a few weeks ago, like took him down, ragdolled him repetitively, and just subbed him relatively easily. So that shows how bad his takedown defense is. With punches, he can be a little bit hook heavy. He's a bit more educated than, say, just like a hook spammer, but he's not going to put together like complicated combinations with crosses, uppercuts, etc. Honestly, a lot of people are on Asplund here. It feels like this fight is kind of made for Sharaf to knock him out early. Because if he gets one takedown, I feel like he can TKO Asplund on the ground. And even if he pushes Asplund against the fence, he may be able to finish him there. So if the fight goes past round 1, Asplund is very, very likely to win it. But I am going to pick Sharaf round 1 TKO here, and I am surprised that the odds are this far skewed. To be fair, Groden is one of the entertaining WMMA fighters. Yeah, that's fair. How can one even grapple Asplund? I feel like if you go for anything, you just slip down the loose skin. To be fair, other people have had success doing so it is what it is. Okay, so for the person who asks about Asimov, here we go. So I will start with Magny, though. So, Magny is mainly a clinch-heavy grappler. He doesn't really have the best takedowns, and he doesn't really have like too much from the outside, but if you get into the clinch with him, he's very good at wearing on you and then eventually dragging you to the ground and trying to lock something up from there. On the feet, he's going to poke a lot from the outside. It is mainly just jab spam. He kind of uses the fact that he has stiff striking with a lot of range and just puts jabs in your face repetitively. He will initiate on double legs from the outside, but that ends up usually just getting to the clinch because he's not really great at finishing the double leg takedowns. On the ground, he's going to look for submissions and has great ground and pound and control. He has a very unique position when he gets hooks in, where he's able to elevate your legs so you can't really scramble from there and land ground and pound at the same time. It's very interesting. His calf kick defense is non-existent, so usually people can just spam calf kicks and takedowns against him and win that way. But if you don't finish him early and you gas yourself out, he's definitely live to get a comeback finish all the time. Asimov, on the other hand, is primarily a wrestler, but sometimes he will strike a fair amount. He tends to move around on the outside to try to set up his takedowns from there. He throws extremely fluidly on the feet and focuses on longer combinations. So he will throw punches to the into head kicks into punches, and so on. So he tends to kind of be like a on the feet, a budget version of Peyton Talbot in a sense. His shots are mainly double legs. He finishes it in different ways every single time, though he is willing to switch up the takedown part way. So he'll shoot on double leg, switch to single, so on. On the ground, he mainly tries to slowly advance position for a sub. He's not going to really land much ground and pound. Most of his time on the ground is realistically control that is kind of anticlimactic, which has made him a bit boring in the past if he's fighting someone who knows how to defend on the ground. I don't have the highest opinion of Asimov. I know a lot of people are expecting him to be ranked. To be clear, I am going to pick him against Magny here. I think he probably 30-27s or subs Magny here. But I do think that he is overrated because there's nothing about his game that really makes me think that at a competitive division like welterweight, he's going to break through and go anywhere. If you can stuff his takedowns like Jackson did, then he gets very like desperate and not defensively responsible on the feet, and you can just start like unloading with your hands and put him away fairly easily. So I think he makes Magny look fairly easy unless he like gasses himself and gasses himself out and gets finished late. But I do expect him to like lose to someone like a Randy Brown right after that. So Asimov 30-27 decision here would probably be my prediction. Bellator fighter is a bad sign already? Yeah, for sure. All I want is a crafty Magny late finish for Christmas. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see it. All right, Brito versus Isaac Thomson. So I don't have any notes on Thomson, but I did watch some of his fights, so I will do my best to break him down anyways. Why did that happen? That was weird. Okay. Anyways, so going to Brito. Brito has an absolutely like maniac fighting style. He's just going to throw everything with full power, just run forwards. If he tries to take you down, he's just going to grab you and try to pick you up and slam you on the ground. Like, he definitely uses his physicality. His technique is a little bit questionable, to say the least. He will blast calf kicks as hard as he possibly can with zero setup. When he runs forwards, he's mainly just throwing overhands and hooks. There's not really like a double jab cross or anything like that. When he gets in on his takedowns, he will sometimes try to get to the side as he throws you down so he can scramble to the back. On the ground, he's either just going to try to smash your face in or jump on the back and go for the rear naked choke. He has very poor defense everywhere because his fundamentals are so terrible, but a lot of the time his opponents are so intimidated by his physicality and power that they don't really take advantage of his poor striking defense and such. Thomson is a well-rounded fighter who's very early into his career. Even though he's had 11 fights, he is quite young for debuting in the UFC, and you can kind of see that in his game, in all honesty. His striking is like, I would say, halfway between karate striking and boxing. It's like he kind of maintains a karate stance, but it's a little narrow for a traditional karate stance, and he doesn't really have the karate movement. He's mainly throwing jabs and crosses, sometimes in sequence. He will put together slightly longer combos sometimes, but it's not really like changing up the type of punches, it's just the number of punches. He will switch to wrestling just randomly, and he does like to time people's entries into the clinch and then try to get a better position and then take you down from there. So kind of like what Valentina did against Wei Li. Nothing about his game stuck out to me, in all honesty, though. I have to pick Brito by first round TKO here. It could be a submission as well, but I'm thinking TKO, because to beat Brito, you need something about your game that kind of stands out. So his first loss in the UFC was, what was his name? Let me look. Oh, yes, Bill Algeo. So Bill Algeo, like his striking defense is spectacular. We basically saw Brito just hitting air for like 90% of that fight. Then we get to the William Gomez fight, same exact thing. Just spectacular striking defense, which made sure that Brito was just hitting air, and because of that, he wasn't able to really do anything. Pat Sabatini has a spectacular grappling, because of that was able to just control to a decision. But you need like some factor like that that's going to make you be able to beat him over 3 rounds or somehow find a finish, even though he has not been finished before. So I think Brito, again, it's a very tough debuting fight for a younger fighter who doesn't have a immensely dangerous part of their game. So I think Brito is going to make it look very easy here. All right. On to Amanda Lemos versus Gillian Robertson. So Lemos is a power puncher. On the outside, she's mainly going to throw jabs and a variety of kicks. When she enters, she loads up on pretty much everything. She tends to enter with hooks and overhands. She's not very technical with throwing crosses and stuff like that. She is extremely strong. That's why she's able to like fraud check a lot of grapplers in the division, because you just can't brute force takedowns on her. If you try to brute force takedown, she's going to be able to defend it. That's kind of what we saw with the Tatiana Suarez fight, where Suarez was not being technical enough to like change up takedowns and take her down that way or set it up with striking on the feet. So Lemos was able to just defend, but wasn't able to get off the fence and kind of lost because of that. She is not the best at getting up if you do take her down, and she is a bit prone to like pulling guillotine for no reason when she really shouldn't. So sometimes that can be a problem for her. Robertson is a damage-oriented grappler. On the feet, she's mainly throwing jabs, 1-2s, and calf kicks. She knows that she is not a great striker, and she does not try to be a good striker. So that's good, because she's not going to get knocked out for absolutely no reason, to say the least. She has a variety of takedowns. She can shoot on a single leg or double leg. She will switch up the finish repetitively and such until she gets you down. On the ground, she's going to slowly advance and look for subs, then do damage afterwards. So if she can get to, say, like, a good half guard or side control and like a sub isn't presenting itself, that's when she'll start like opening up with elbows and punches and so on. This fight is difficult to call because Robertson does kind of bully with how she shoots takedowns, which could be a problem against Lemos, but I do have to lean Robertson because she is definitely progressing a lot more than Lemos is. Lemos is someone who's at the end of her career and doesn't really seem like she is improving in any aspect of the game. Well, you can see the improvements with Robertson every single time she fights. So I'm going to say Robertson's able to get a TKO on the ground, where she's not going to be able to get a submission because Lemos is somewhat defensively responsible, but she is able to get to, say, like half guard or mount or something and just open up with elbows from there. Okay, this is another fight I was not able to do tape for, so everything is going to have to be on memory for this. So Bobby Green is basically a volume-oriented striker. He fights with his hands down and kind of trusts his head movement, which is a double-edged sword, because if he's able to get later into fights, the style is very good because he can end up flowing and just defending takedowns a lot more easily as people try to get away from his volume. However, in round 1, it definitely makes it easier to hit him and put him away. So especially as he gets up there in age, it could be a bit of a problematic style for him. He is basically just going to try to pressure as much as possible, make you do stupid things with the pressure, and just put volume on you until you either get knocked out or just slowly fade cardio-wise, and he picks up a dominant decision. He was able to win round 3 against Fiziev because of the cardio, and he was just able to just do enough in terms of rolling with strikes and such, so even though Fiziev was landing harder early, it wasn't able to do enough damage to really impair Bobby Green, and if it was 5 rounds, he probably would have potentially won that fight. Lance Gibson is more of a wrestler. On the feet, he does kind of have power, but generally speaking, he's going to be relatively conservative, just put some stuff out there to get feelers and then take you down when he can. On the ground, he's going to mainly work with ground and pound from what I know. I don't really know if he has subs in his arsenal or not. I've only really seen him working with like some basic ground and pound and such. Gibson has not looked spectacular against the not best competition, to say the least. So it's really hard to give him much of a chance against Bobby Green. I think Gibson also has not fought in 2 years or something like that. So between everything together, I have to pick Bobby Green TKO, especially because Gibson was like TKO'd by a jab once. So yeah, not the deepest analysis for this fight, but I do think Bobby Green should be able to have a pretty much tailor-made matchup for him here. All right. Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Marcus Buchecha. So Kennedy is a calm and relatively calculated striker. He's never really going to rush things. He's going to wait for opportunities to open up. He mainly works with simple stuff like jabs, crosses, and teeps, and he'll just throw them repetitively. He will randomly switch things up, though, and like throw a head kick out of nowhere to try to catch his opponent surprised. He's good at knowing what weapon to add and when to add it. So, for example, against Cutelaba, he started adding in knees repetitively, and Cutelaba basically just ran into them until he got TKO'd. So he's definitely good at adjusting, though it sometimes does take him a few minutes to adjust. He relies pretty heavily on head movement defensively, and he does like fighting with his hands down, which can be a little bit unnerving when he's fighting a decent striker because they can definitely hurt him. But against a grappler like Buchecha, that should not really play a role realistically. Buchecha is pretty much a pure BJJ fighter. He doesn't have the greatest takedowns, he doesn't have the greatest stand-up, but on the ground he is definitely dangerous. His striking, there's nothing really to break down. All he does is like spam hooks. He does have power, so if you just completely ignore the striking, you can definitely pay for it. But it's nothing that's really going to give you many issues if you're a somewhat competent striker. As I was saying, he definitely does have natural power, but he doesn't really set anything up with it. So unless like you literally just fall for hook spam and get hit, you'll be fine. He shoots constantly. He'll shoot on a single, double leg, whatever is basically available. Recently, he did seem to prefer the single leg setups. I don't know if that's because he saw something specific about Boudet, even though it did not pay off. But yeah, he basically only shot singles in that fight. On the ground, he basically does no damage whatsoever. He's just going to chase subs. So you can basically time him trying to take the back and just force him to slide off because you know he's not going to hit you. He's literally just going to jump for the back. You really can't pick Buchecha to win a UFC fight. I'm going to pick Kennedy TKO. I don't have the highest opinion of Kennedy, so I'm not like crazy high on that. But I feel like as long as he just adds in the knees again and doesn't do anything immensely stupid, like Buchecha should not have anything really that should be able to threaten Kennedy. All right, now we're getting into the more interesting fights. This quite possibly, quite likely, will be fight of the night in my opinion. So starting with Costa. He is well-rounded, but he's primarily a kicker. He is going to throw a large variety of kicks, change the target constantly, and throw a high volume of kicks. He's not just going to wait until he finds something. When he's punching, he prefers to blitz in. He's extremely dynamic with how he punches. He sometimes will start with a Superman punch and so on. And also, if you take him down, he can sub you off of his back. He does have a variety of submissions there. His defense can be a little bit questionable if you can get past his kicks, because he is very dependent on his range. He doesn't really have like fundamental defense in close. Morgan Charrier is a very well-rounded striker. He can wrestle as well, but that's kind of just thrown in. He likes to deal accumulation damage with a lot of kicks to the calf and the body. So with his kicks, he's not really looking to put you away instantly with a head kick or anything. It's like, okay, I'm just going to damage you until your body can't take it anymore. He can be a bit prone to just throw one strike at a time a lot. He will mix things in with the double leg and of course has reasonable grappling on the ground. He had decent control against Chetbane and was able to get some damage off there. If you dodge his first counter, he can definitely struggle with combos. We've seen that a few times now. We saw that against Nate Landwehr. We saw that against Nathaniel Wood and so on. He is very distance management focused as well. So we have two fighters who are both very distance management focused and are both going to try to kick a lot. So this is going to be an interesting fight. They are also opposite stances. So there's going to be a lot of body and head kicks here in my opinion. It's very hard to pick a winner here because Costa is going to be higher volume where Morgan is going to be higher precision. What is going to skew this, in my opinion, and make me pick Costa here is the fact that Morgan has seemed to have issues with speed. Against Wood, I was expecting Morgan to have a bit more success because he is by far the more technical striker of the two. But Wood was kind of just able to blitz in repetitively, and it seems like Morgan just was not able to figure out the timing on counters. And I feel like that could happen again with Costa. I don't think Costa is quite as fast as Wood, but I do think that Costa is going to be a bit better at setting things up than Wood is, and therefore he may be able to land his blitzes and get out safely. Very difficult to say though. I'm going to say Costa decision 29-28 by just higher volume, but we will see what happens. It's going to be a fun fight no matter what, in my opinion. I'm going to drink some water before I do this one. How difficult am I to understand right now? I can hear my voice is off, but I don't know how bad it is. You sound good? Okay, thank you. A real good insult could KO Green, that'd be funny. I didn't notice anything. Okay, good. Then it's just mainly my mainly the field then, I guess. All right, Cesar Almeida versus Cezary Oleksiejczuk. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. That's the best I can do. So Cezary is a relaxed power puncher. He mainly throws 1 or 2 strikes at a time. He does a lot of good work with jabs. He throws a lot more straight punches than his brother Mikhail does. He has a very solid 1-2. We don't really know his weaknesses because he hasn't been tested in a long time. Like, he did lose earlier in his career, but he's definitely improved a lot since then, so we don't really know what he's going to struggle with now, in all honesty. Almeida is a kickboxer who prefers to do work with kicks. He throws a lot of leg kicks and body kicks to try to deal accumulation damage. He doesn't really go to the head as much with kicks. He tends to do that only with punches. With punches, he likes to catch and throw. So he'll put up a high guard, wait until you throw a hook. Once it hits the high guard, he'll throw a hook back, type of thing. He's very reliant on his high guard, but his high guard did not translate well from kickboxing. Because in kickboxing, you can kind of just put your gloves up and they'll catch most things. In MMA, that does not work with the smaller gloves. So it's kind of become problematic for him because people are just landing right through the high guard repetitively. So I feel like you have to favor Cezary TKO here because we know Almeida's struggling with straight shots and Cesary's just going to walk out and throw a bunch of straight shots. Hard to say though, Cesary's untested, of course, but I feel like this is a position where Cezary could get a highlight and kind of just like jump into, not stardom, but like the starting of that, if you get what I mean. So Cezary TKO, I'm going to say round 1 most likely. All right, Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos. Now, this is a fight that I have different feelings about than a lot of the UFC base, it seems like. So Vallejos is a boxer who will throw in other skills. He prefers to counter-strike. He will try to bait something out from you, then he'll slip, and then he'll throw a combo from there. On the outside, he throws mainly calf kicks to force you to engage, and he'll throw heavy overhands and such to try to work his way in. He can get a little bit predictable with the direction he's going to slip and stuff. So even though it worked very early against Silva well, once Silva realized he was slipping in the same direction every time, he just started putting the lead elbow there repetitively, and Vallejos just kept moving into it. That's why he got caught up very badly. Giga is a kick-heavy striker, and particularly the right body kick is extremely strong. He tends to throw 1 punch at a time, but he throws a full power every time he throws. He uses movement and head movement as a defense. His cardio has definitely been questionable, especially if he faces any adversity in early rounds. He is a bit vulnerable to combos because of the fact that he's going to only throw 1 punch in return, and the head movement and movement kind of fades after like defending the first punch or 2 punches. So I think this is a much closer fight than people are saying because Vallejos is very early into his career. If this was a very developed Vallejos, then I think he would take it very easily. But Giga could definitely pose some stylistic issues for him because Giga's not going to let him just get into the pocket and throw there. Like, Giga's not going to box with him. I think we're going to see a lot of knees from Giga, trying to prevent Vallejos from slipping forwards, and Vallejos definitely needs to be careful to not get caught by something and put out, because even Allen almost got put out by a knee with like doing something similar there. I think Vallejos should shoot early here. He has takedowns in his kit, he was able to use them against Danny Silva, and we know that it definitely drains Giga if he's put on his back early. So if Vallejos fights this fight smart, I do think he gets a late finish. I think he takes down Giga in round 1, controls a lot of that round, and then in round 2 and 3, he can start working into the pocket and then eventually could clip Giga and put him away. However, I would not be shocked if this went to a semi-close decision. And in all honesty, even though everyone's being like Vallejos is like the lock of the century, I would not be crazy shocked if Giga was able to put him out with a knee either. So I'm going to pick Vallejos by late TKO, but I am not going to be surprised regardless of how this fight goes, in all honesty. Giga flying knee is possible because Kevin loads up with his head down. I don't think he'll even need a flying knee because there's a massive height discrepancy, so I think he could just put the knee up there. Vallejos by sub plus 1200. It's definitely possible, yeah. What's the most confident you've ever been in a pick, and what was it? The most confident I was ever in a pick was Kawi Fernandez versus what's his name? Hardwick. It's the only time I bet 30 units on a fight. I was very confident, and luckily it ended up exactly what I expected. Alright, on to the main event. Yeah, we went through all of these relatively quickly. But so, Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. So Royval is a very high volume striker. He just throws a lot of stuff out there. In recent years, that's mainly just been constantly pumping the jab and then just trying to pull you into something afterwards. He can be extremely dynamic, but it really depends on the fight and the opponent, and it seems like in recent years he has been less dynamic. Like, the Royval that showed up against Kai Kara-France is not the Royval that showed up against Moreno and Van. On the ground, he will scramble constantly and chase subs repetitively. So he will jump on guillotines, he will just like look to set up a triangle, then he'll try to get on top and so on. He's never going to settle on his back unless you're an extremely good grappler, and he will always just look to be repetitively dangerous. He tries to overwhelm people with constantly different looks, and the tall man defense can be a little bit problematic. I did make a reel on this for those of you who have seen it, but he tends to like lean back a lot of the time, and he enters a little bit recklessly because of that, because he's kind of expecting to be able to lean back. So people who know how to time him entering end up just clipping him repetitively, which is basically how Van was able to catch and drop him and almost finish him at the end of the fight. Kape is a flow stage striker, so he fights extremely loosely. He'll keep a loose guard, flowy striking, also kind of like Talbot in a sense. I'm going to be saying that a lot, it seems like. He will use all striking tools available, from flying knees to spinning back fists and such. He tends to get better as the fight progresses and he makes more reads. However, his pace can be disrupted if you can pressure him a lot. So we saw against, say, like Pantoja, and against the guy that fought him on short notice, I'm blanking on his name, Felipe dos Santos, that they were able to just pressure him so much that Kape wasn't able to get into his flow state and had a lot of issues. He does have a surprisingly good chin as well, so he is very difficult to put away even if you hit him clean repetitively. Because Royval has not been showing up as his chaotic self in recent years, I have to lean Kape TKO here. I think that Royval is just going to get caught too often, and he's taken too much damage recently, and eventually his body is going to give out on him. However, if we do see the Royval who fought Kai Kara-France, I do think there's definitely a chance he could overwhelm Kape here and work to a submission or a decision. Because if he's mixing in the head kicks, if he's mixing in a ton of pressure, spinning elbows and like takedowns and so on, then Kape may have the same problem he did against Pantoja and kind of just freeze up and not be able to throw anything. So Kape TKO, I'm going to say round 3, but I would like to see Royval do well here. I mean, like, you got to feel for Royval. He made Pantoja just basically hold him down in a very boring fight. Then he takes Van on short notice, has a very good fight, but loses that. So it's like, Royval is one of those guys you kind of want to see succeed just because of his like attitude and behavior in general, and Kape is not the most likable. But yeah, I do think Kape will eventually get a TKO here. Ko is fighting Jacoby Smith, yeah. Moreno versus Asu apparently in the works. Yeah, I think Moreno should take that extremely easily. It's Asu's just not that good, to be blunt, right? Like, he's not the level of Moreno. Alright, so we got through that fairly easily. We'll just go on to whatever questions now. WPix, thank you. What makes you so confident in John Silva beating Volk? The problem for Volk there is that Volk cannot put away John Silva, at least very unlikely. He's not going to land like a massive spinning elbow like Lopez did, so he's going to have to point fight him for 5 rounds. And when you're giving John Silva 5 rounds to make reads and lands one thing very big, I mean, it's going to happen most likely. Oracle, which of the Oleksiejczuk brothers do you think is better? It's very hard to see because we've seen Mikhail against much better comp. Like, Cezary has looked better against low-level comp, but that doesn't really say much. So it's really hard to compare right now. Royval over under 81.5 strikes. That's a tough one. I would lean over, but I really would not say anything. Like, I would not say you should take either. Opinions on Winged Sea. I don't know much about him. I just saw him being a baby after he lost his last fight, so that's all my opinion of him is. The question everyone thinking, what are we going to do for 6 weeks? Betting-wise, we'll find some other MMA stuff, and of course there's like NFL. In terms of what we'll do in terms of content and streams, we'll figure it out. I might analyze some of the bigger fights that are going to happen early next year, and may just throw in like random other streams. What do you think about a Taira versus Pantoja matchup? I think Taira would honestly just kind of walk through Pantoja. Do you think John Silva becomes champion in his career? Yeah, probably within 2 years. He can take down Silva, though. Lopez almost finished Silva on the ground. Taking down Silva without him doing something extremely stupid is very hard. And Volk doesn't have the same ability on the ground that Lopez does. So I think even if Silva gets taken down, he can get up against Volk. Initial thoughts on Silva Allen. I'm pretty nervous for him here. I feel like Allen can give him trouble. I think Allen is probably going to look good early, and then Silva will probably clip and put him away a bit later. I would not be shocked if Allen won. I think it's a much harder matchup for Silva than most he's gotten so far, but I do think that, yeah, Silva will probably finish it later in the fight. John or Prime Max? That's a tough one. I'm probably going to lean John, to be honest. NBA Oracle? I don't know NBA well, to be honest. Buchecha over under 14.5 significant strikes. I'm going to lean under, but that's another tough one. Kind of depressed my other autistic king, Arnold Allen, is going to get slams. Fair. Allen wins. It's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. Taira is very unpopular in Japan. I hope he gets recognized. Why is Taira unpopular in Japan? Good outside movement with hot hands. He gets hit, though, is the problem. You can't, like, beat someone that gets hit unless you have a crazy chin against Silva. Oracle, what are your thoughts on a potential Pereira versus Gaunt fight? I think Pereira would massacre him. Ilya versus Prime GSP at 170. Who would win? I feel like GSP would pick him apart. Yeah, I'd lean GSP there. Max or Charles? I have to lean Max, but Charles is definitely live. Asplund over under significant strikes. How many? How's John's cardio? I mean, I've never seen him get tired. Because UFC is not big in Japan, Ryzen is where Azakura was from. Okay, fair, I guess. Yeah, I mean, UFC just hasn't really, like, invested too much in Japan, so it is what it is. How would Shavkat versus Morales go, in your opinion? I think Morales would have a good chance of putting Shavkat away. Shavkat just doesn't move his head. What's good? Octagon, Fazeev, Roofy predictions. Hey, Fazeev, Roofy. I'm leaning Roofy, but I'm not confident. Over under 27.5 significant strikes. Let's go under. For 6 weeks, and we need to autism max to get better at MMA. Fair. What was your reaction to John Silva's performance against Diego Lopez? It was just kind of annoying because it was kind of predictable at the end. Like, Silva was just throwing like a maniac, and it's like, okay, you're going to get caught. Buckley or Shavkat? Shavkat. Fazeev and Roofy both have weak cardio, so how does that fight progress then? I don't think either has the style to gas the other, though. So I don't think we're going to see bad cardio out of them this fight. Was tired at the end of round 2 of the Diego fight before he got knocked out. I don't believe that, because he was just throwing more and more volume. I don't think he got tired. Have you been limited before? How do you avoid it? Yes, I have. The easiest way is to sprinkle in random stuff. So, like, bet on stuff you're not good at. But, like, obviously don't lose a ton of money there. But, like, just bet on, like, random probability stuff. Like, stuff that no one who is good at sports betting would bet on. And then bet on stuff you're not good at and sprinkle in, like, a few losses. What was your prediction for Asplund versus Sharaf? Sharaf round 1. Soccer Oracle? I'm not great at that either. I mean, I could do NFL. Soccer's not something I know too well. Co versus current Colby Covington. I'd take Co. Who would you take between JDM and Protez? I'd lean JDM. What about betting on dog racing? That would be something. Prime RDA or Connor? I think RDA would have melted him. Connor would have finished him within 1 very easily. I don't know, like RDA did not have the level of defense to fight Connor. Islam versus Hamzat at 170. I'd lean Islam. I think he would be able to stall until Hamzat gassed out and then finish him. Would you be surprised if Taira knocked out Van if they fought? He's improved his speed and his strikes. I would not be surprised now. Do you think the current Lopez takes down Volk and can ground and pound for a decision? I think I think Lopez probably knocks out Volk because you're giving another 25 minutes to land a big shot, but it is what it is. Buchecha over under 1.5 takedowns. I'm gonna say under. Our slap betting, here we come, valid. I wish they feed Colby to Co would avenge his coach Duncan and get more famous. Fair. Thoughts on Paddy Gaethje on the feet intrigued me considering Paddy's good game planning recently. I don't think Paddy's going to take any risks on the feet. I think he's just going to wait until a takedown opens up. I expect him to just kick a lot on the outside, maybe poke with like jabs and such, and just wait until Gaethje overcommits and take him down. Ilya or Khabib at 170. I'd lean Ilya, but I don't know. Would you give the best chance to beat Islam at 170? Topuria. Who are your top 3 goats excluding PED cheats? GSP, of course. Then it gets harder after that. You could make a case for a lot of people. I used to put DJ up there. I'm not sure I would do that anymore. You could. Maybe I'd put DJ in top 3 still. Yeah. And then I guess you could put Islam at 3. But if you're saying no PED cheats, you might have to remove him. It's hard to say. Because he has popped before. So, I don't know. It depends on like your definition there. Jones or Khabib, pound for pound, 2 wins. Khabib. Current Alexandre Topuria versus Talbot. Alexandre Topuria. I wonder what happened to Pico. Dude actually died. I did see him post something, but yeah, we'll have to see what happens in his next fight. Bobby Green over under 53 significant strikes. Over. 1 GSP, 2 Volk, 3 Islam, 4 DJ. That's not a bad list. Why'd you change your opinion of DJ though? DJ's a really tough one to tell because it's like, okay, the Horiguchi win aged really well. The Cejudo loss, you could say aged well, but it's kind of hard to say. And it's like, it gets harder and harder to tell where DJ was actually at. DJ's MMA takes are so bad, man, it makes me want to move him down on the GOAT list. Yeah, I get what you mean. Oracle, I always thought about this, but do you ever feel like sometimes when hardcores or MMA analysts make picks, they get too caught up in style and overthink their picks? I don't think they overthink style. I think that, at least if we want to talk about my own weaknesses, and I can't as much speak to other analysts, but sometimes they, or at least I, overthink game planning. So I'm like, oh, if both fighters optimally game plan, then this fighter is going to win. But the reality is both fighters are not going to optimally game plan usually. So sometimes, yeah, you can overthink that for sure. Max or Khabib? Max. Gonna go to bed, guys. Have a good night, everyone. Have a good one. I'm from the same city as Pico. He's alive. He will come back. Valid, yeah. Pad versus Fry prediction. Fry round 1 TKO. Holland versus Jeff Neal confirmed. Thoughts? I think Jeff Neal should piece him up. How do you think John Silva bounces back against Arnold Allen? I think he'll get a late finish. Gary versus Islam, considering they both have really good game planning. It's an interesting fight, yeah. I'd lean Islam, but I wouldn't be shocked if Gary won. Can Kape, if he wins against Royval, leapfrog Tyra for a title shot? No, he cannot. How old are you, out of curiosity? I don't answer that here, but do you ever see yourself collaborating with other channels? I would be willing to. I'll say that. I'm probably not going to like push the issue though. Is it true Jan is the most skilled fighter? I wouldn't say that. I think he's up there, but I don't think he's the most skilled. Who do you have, Sakyang Ko versus Jacoby Smith, who was just announced? I have Sakyang Ko. Of all the current title contenders at welterweight, who has the best chance of beating Islam? Probably Morales then. You could argue Gary. I'd lean Morales. DJ thinks Jake Paul will knock out Anthony Joshua. Honestly, that fight's so weird that who knows what's going to happen. Like, obviously, Joshua should win, but it's Jake Paul fights, so you never know. It's just weird. Had over under 17.5 significant strikes. Under. Do you think Islam wins a 50-45 or 49-46 against Gary? I can see it being a 48-47. Why is welterweight so stacked? Yeah, it just turned out that way right now. Safest bout on the card, Brito. Who is better striking, Alex Pereira or Jan? Jan. Sutkin-Ko will become the first UFC fighter to hold 5 belts, maybe. As far as Islam popping, that was Meldomian prescribed for cardiac issues, though, right? They prescribe it over here in the East. Okay. Obviously, right, you can't say anything with any certainty, so take this with a grain of salt. The chances of meldonium being prescribed for him, for what his situation was at that time, does not seem that high. So, it's a bit of a questionable one, to say the least. It's like a quote-unquote prescribed type of thing, but it is what it is. And you see Tate is gonna fight Chase Demir in boxing? I mean, who cares, to be honest? I saw, but yeah, who cares? Anthony Hernandez versus Sean Strickland. I think Strickland should be able to TKO him. Rob or Yuan in the trilogy, and how? I see him robbed by a late submission. Hasn't Usman Nurmagomedov also been prescribed meldonium? I think so, yeah. Yeah, you guys know what I mean. What makes Sutkin-Ko's grappling so good? Is it his use of overhooks? He always looks so strong on the ground they can't do anything. I would have to rewatch the tape, to be honest. I'm not positive. Do you think there are a lot of fighters juicing right now? I mean, probably. Charrier over under 1.5 takedowns. I would lean over, but not confident. Hot take, I think Natalia Silva beats Val and ends her reign. Excellent movement, cardio, and good takedown defense. What do you think? I don't think that's a hot take. I mean, she opened as the favorite. So, yeah, I mean, I think everyone agrees with you. I agree with you as well. I think Natalia Silva wins. Do you think the weight cut got to Rob fighting 4 times a year? It could be a factor. I think ego is a bigger factor, though. Who'd you predict for Bobby Green fight? I took Bobby Green. Tyra or Figgy Prime? Ooh, that's a tougher one. I'm gonna lean Tyra, but not confident. I hate when good fighters still use steroids like you're already good. What do you need steroids for? Yeah, I agree. Would you consider Ko the best Asian unranked prospect? Probably. Yeah, I think so. Do you think Kamaru Usman was on roids? I mean, there's the whole, like, more plates, more dates breakdown on that, and he tends to have more knowledge about juicing than I do, so if he says yes, I'm going to assume yes. Lance Gibson over under 34 significant strikes. It's really tough to say because he's short notice and hasn't fought in years, but if I had to pick, I'd say under. Is Ko fighting Jacoby at middleweight? Ko is fighting Jacoby, yes. Weight class, I don't know. Horiguchi versus Royval. If Royval loses, would be a banger? Yeah, valid. Could I get a recap of this weekend's picks? Yeah, sure. More plates, more dates, said DC was roided in the second Jones fight. I mean, he did have a very questionable test result, so I mean, I don't disagree. I took Bleda decision, Fry TKO, Santos sub, Sharaf TKO, Amazov decision, Brito TKO, Robertson TKO, Green TKO, Kennedy TKO, Costa decision, Cesary TKO, Vallejos late TKO, and Kape TKO. Do you think it's worth it to sprinkle on the fight going the distance between Kape and Royval? I don't think it's a great value. You could, but I don't think it's a great value. Tuivasa or Teixeira? Teixeira. How do you get good at wrestling fundamentals in MMA? I mean, you just got to practice them. There's nothing overly complicated there. Whose side are you on in the whole Dana and Ngannou beef? I mean, I hate to be supporting Dana, but like everyone who's ever interacted with Ngannou ends up hating him, so I feel like that says something. Oralby versus Ko, who wins? I'd win Ko. Magny will win. I hope so. Land blast double legs on random strangers valid. Did you see Shavkat call Buckley a black boy? Yeah, I did see that. I don't know. Another hot taker question. Am I the only one who thinks Quinlan Selkills is not at all that skilled? Like, even for top 10 or perhaps top 15. Yeah, I don't think Selkills will be ranked for long. I don't think it's very good. Jeff or Ko? That's a tough one. I think it might be too early for Ko for that. I think Jeff Neal is probably a tough matchup for him. Yeah, I agree with you on the Ngannou beef thing. Thanks, yeah. Fair enough. Do you think Brito will finish Isaac under 1.5? The odds are pretty close for some reason. Yeah, I think he will. Who are some of your favorite fighters, Oracle? Stylistically, I say Tyra, Fatima Klein, John Silva, BSD. Who else? I like Rinya Nakamura as well. Charles Oliveira you can't dislike. I mean, everyone has to like him, honestly. Any bold 2026 takes, new champs, downfalls? Good question. I don't, and I hate to say this, I don't think Pantoja will ever win another fight. I think that it is, at his age, an injury like that is going to completely destroy his career. Why is Piotr's long guard so effective compared to other people that just get cooked using it? I don't like long guard in general. Even when he's using it, I don't love it. I would say it's because of his ability to switch to the high guard and switch to countering very quickly. But I still don't like it, to be honest. BSD or Armin? I'd probably lean Armin, but not confidently. Is it crazy to think Ray Cecilia could be a future champ, given how young he is and already having level BJJ and cardio? I think if he learns to strike, he'll be a demon. It's not crazy to think that, but I wouldn't expect it. I just don't think he has a well-rounded enough skill set. Which top 15 fighters can Ko beat in welterweight? Let me see. Welterweights, he could beat D-Rod very easily. He could beat Covington very easily. He could probably beat Burns. I think he has a chance against Buckley. There's a chance against Leon also. You forgot Prime Tony. I was talking about current fighters, but yes, I love Prime Tony. Do you think Prime Tony was actually good or overrated? If anything, I think Prime Tony was underrated. His small movements were very effective to a level that like most people just do not understand. Who would you put Rinya against next? Honestly, I would give him one more unranked, who I just can't think of, and then give him a ranked fighter. Who else besides Dana has beef with Francis? His old coaches, PFL now, and like again, like literally think of anyone who's interacted with him, they probably have beef with him. Jan is literally the only MMA fighter that actually moves his high guard instead of just blocking parallel to his face. Valid. John Silva mentioned yes. I think Cyril Gahn's coach has beef with Francis. I don't know why though. Yeah, he does. Francis used to train there, and like apparently no one liked him. Cezary that good? You're trusting him against Almeida? It's more so I'm trusting Almeida's weaknesses, but hard to say. Did you hear D-Rod might be in prison right now? Yeah, I heard. I don't know what to make of it. Hooker versus BSD. BSD should maul him. Topuria is not ready for current Tony. Too much aura for that little bit. Fair. Is it crazy to think Prime Tony beats everyone in lightweight from his era to now except Ilya? It's not crazy, no. I might agree. How high are you on Luke Riley? Not particularly, to be honest. Uncle I was talking about Ngannou also. Yeah, fair. Yeah, it just seems like no one likes Ngannou. And his past is very questionable. His presence is very questionable with the whole like motorcycle thing as well. John Silva versus current top 5 lightweights. I feel like I've answered this before, but I think he beats Patty. I think he beats Justin. I think he beats Holloway, but that's tough. Oliveira is also tough, but I think he wins. Arman is... I do think he beats Arman because the left hook issue of Arman. Topuria, I don't think he would be right now, though. Topuria versus Prime Connor. I think Prime Connor would knock out Topuria. Do you think there is something more to the UFC's passing over Arman than what is visible to us? Oh, I think it's just the fact that he turned down Gamrot, right? He got the chance to avenge his loss and get the title shot simultaneously and refused to fight him. So it just made him look scared. Kennedy over under 32.5 significant strikes. I'm going to lean over. What do you rate the upcoming Polish prospects such as Jacob Wicklats, Robert Rushala, and now Iwo? Do you think any are ranked material? Rushala is not good. He's never going to be anything, in all honesty. Iwo could be. I mean, he's very young, but it's hard to say right now. And Jacob, we need to see another fight against him, against someone other than Patchy Mix. He has potential, but he definitely has to improve. Brian Tony could beat Ilya by having such a good chin. Ilya breaks his hands. Fair. Gonna go now, be safe, and make sure your doors are locked and watch out for Wild Joe Pipers. Have a good night, Gabriel. Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira got announced. Who wins and why? Is Mario KO unrealistic? No, it's not unrealistic. I think Mario does KO him. Being a counterfighter viable if you're short for your weight class? It can be viable, but you need a way to get into the pocket. They should sacrifice Benil or Chandler to Manuel Torres for another highlight KO. They should sacrifice Chandler. I think Benil's going to move up, so. John or Islam? I think if John fights humbly, he can win that. But he can't, like, fight with any ego. I feel Dana skipped over Mobzar because they gave him Pico. He can get a finish, potentially, and establish his height, and he dropped out. Yeah, I agree. Mobzar pulling out from the Pico fight was not a good look. I heard somewhere that Arman missed weight at 311 and didn't want to fight Makhachev if it meant it wasn't for the title, so he lied about having an injury. Yeah, I've heard that as well. It's definitely possible. Do you care about UFC BJJ? Not particularly. I'll watch it if it's on, but I don't really care. Topuria versus Prime Khabib. I lean Topuria, but not confident. Charrier over under half a finish. Under. If you had an iron chin like Vettori, would you specialize in grappling? Vettori should honestly just fight like Ilya. Just start bombing overhands and such. Rufy versus Fazeev, who wins and why? I'm leaning Rufy. I think he's just a cleaner striker, but it's hard to say. How far do you think Alexandre and Topuria will get in the UFC? I think I'll be top 5 at least at some point. Who wins, Pico or Evloev? Honestly, well, I think you have to pick Evloev. I would not be shocked if Pico chinned him. Which promotion do you rate closer to UFC, Ryzen or PFL? Honestly, probably Ryzen. Is it crazy to think Aaron Pico's a future champ? I hate using the term fluke, but I feel like that elbow by Lerone is a legit 1 out of 100. I don't think Pico could be a future champ. He has a terrible chin. He's always had a terrible chin. And he's like, he doesn't have good control on the ground. Like, even though he gets takedowns fairly easily, he's never held someone there for long. On the feet, he is dangerous, but like, it's not crazy. So I just don't think he's going to go too far, to be honest. But I'd like to see it. I feel Prime Khabib low-key could beat him in my humble opinion. It's possible, but the problem is Khabib definitely relied on having a good chin. And I don't think you want to do that against Topuria. You've assembled a John Silva fan club, including me. That works. I wouldn't be shocked if Evloev chin Pico. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked either way. Does Waldo KO Lewis? Yeah. Josh Van versus Shamil? Josh Van. Oracle is beautiful, thank you. And do you think Talbot could beat anyone in the top 5 bantamweight? Let's see. I think he has a chance against Corey just because of the power discrepancy, to be honest. But I still would pick Corey. Khabib versus Oliveira. I'd lean Khabib by boring decision. JDM versus Prates. JDM. Is Sean title run back on track if he got a rematch against Jan for the belt? I think he would beat Jan in a rematch, yes. Does Tuivasa get KO'd by Teixeira? Probably. Might be a hot take, but I think Waldo Cortez Acosta has a top 3 chin in MMA ever. It's very possible. How well do you think Lucien Keita does in the UFC? Not very well, to be honest. If your name is Joshua, you're automatically good at fighting. Apparently. Who is the smartest fighter of all time in the UFC, you would say? Maybe GSP. DJ or LeBron in a fight? DJ, easily. Do you think would be champion first, Kyoji or Tyra? Tyra. Gaudier versus Abdul Malik, who wins? Gaudier. Will Iwo Baraneski reach the top 15 rankings? I think so. Oh, you guys want a really hot take? I think David Martinez could beat Petr Yan right now. Gamrot versus Armin prediction if they ever rematched. I'd say Armin probably edges the decision. How do you rate Adaba? I mean, it's hard to say because we haven't seen him fight anyone decent, but I mean, he's dangerous. Is it crazy to think Alexandre Topuria is one of the smartest coaches in the UFC? It's not crazy. He probably is, yeah. Oracle, why'd you have to flying knee me then hit Topuria drinking emote on me, above me? It was necessary, as they say. David Martinez looks really good short notice. Yeah, exactly. How does he beat Jan? Because Jan has problems fighting on the front foot, which sounds strange, but if you're constantly circling, he has a lot of issues. So I think David Martinez has a good shot of just constantly circling out and picking at him, and Jan's not going to really have a way of cutting him off, because Jan doesn't have the ability to cage cut. Remember that guy that got robbed against Nathaniel Wood? Yeah, what about him? What do you think UFC does main events in Mexico unless it's Yair? I doubt they would have Grasso headline it. Yeah, I think they'll definitely try to get Yair. How do you rate Sandhagen's game planning? I feel like he's good but not innovative. Yeah, I feel like Sandhagen overcomplicates things at times. Do you think Waldo Cortez Acosta realistically has a chance against Aspinall? He has a chance, but I don't think he'll win. Who wins, Volk or GSP pound for pound same size? Probably GSP. Percent chance that Kennedy gets the KO in round 1 for you? Like 35%, maybe 40%. Year versus Evloev at UFC Mexico, fair. Alexandre Topuria versus Jan. I'd lean Jan right now, but I also would not be shocked if Alexandre Topuria won. Do you think Gaudier is really 6'4" in his photo with Strickland? He looked barely bigger than Strickland with both barefoot. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen, but it's very possible he's not. They're not really like sticklers for how they measure height. Or Lerone Murphy and Yair. That could be fun. Neil versus Holland got booked for UFC Houston. Who's your pick? I think Neil sleeps him. Who wins, Van or Kyoji? I'd say Van. I've been thinking about this and it would be depressing as hell if we got Chandler versus Connor as main event for the White House. It would be kind of funny. Do you think Patient Pavlovich has a good chance at beating Aspinall? In my opinion, I think he would beat him. No, I don't think he does. I think that his lack of aggression now is going to come back to haunt him because there's fighters you need to put away, especially at heavyweight. When's our Python-based calculus class coming? You promised us there's plenty of time now with the break. We can see what we could do. Gadier has not fought anyone with a single win in UFC. He's only hyped because of his physicality. True. Who beats a prime Connor at lightweight and featherweight? At featherweight, I could see John Silva being a problem for him. I could see a prime Holloway being a problem for him. At lightweight, Khabib was always going to be a problem for him. Could he beat him, like, at a point in his career? Maybe. It's hard to say. Who else? He beats most people for sure, though. Do you put your picks in with the UFC predictions tracker? I don't think I've seen your name pop up now that I think about it. No, I don't. Have you played Left 4 Dead 2? I have not, actually. What was funny was that Kaio's height was listed at 5'10" at one point. Fair. What fights do you reckon would be on the UFC White House card? There's no American champs or contenders. I wouldn't be shocked if they did Jan versus Merab 3 there, because Merab is like technically American now. What else? What other division? Oh, maybe they try to get a Kayla Harrison fight there. I don't know. I know they'd love to get a Topuria fight there, but I don't think that's going to happen. Ever noticed how Khabib gasses and runs 3 to 5 and his wrestling gets significantly less dangerous? Feel like Volk would have beaten him and Ilya beats him. Yeah, no, I've talked about that plenty of times. Volk definitely could have beaten him, it's possible. Ilya beating him, yeah, I mean, Ilya definitely could have finished him later, it's possible for sure. Who do you think is the best striker and grappler in UFC history? Best grappler might be GSP still. Best striker, it's a lot harder to say, to be honest. Why do all of Khabib's fighters not wrestle with the same aggression he did? I think there's just a talent difference, to be honest. Buchecha versus Jesus Aguilar, who wins heavyweight or versus flyweight? Honestly, I'm not sure. Do you think they do Jones versus Pereira? No, I don't. Odds of Bo Nickel being on the White House main card. Honestly, I don't think he'd be on the main card. Maybe the prelims, though. I've always wondered this, but why don't fighters go for ground and pound more instead of subs? Because it's easier to lose position if you go for ground and pound. Pereira versus Mirzakhanov prediction. I'd still take Pereira, but Mirzakhanov could be a tough matchup. Is White House card happening for real? Seems like it. Do you think LeBron James could be any flyweight in the UFC? No. GSP's grappling looked good because for the most part he was fighting ancient welterweights. I very heavily disagree with that. If we look at GSP's record, let's see what we have. BJ Penn definitely was not an ancient welterweight, and he was definitely very skilled. Matt Hughes, he was able to out-wrestle, which is very good. Koscheck at the time was pretty young, and he out-wrestled him very easily. Matt Hughes again submitted Matt Hughes, which is definitely impressive. Ragdoll's Matt Serra repetitively. John Fitch was pretty good at the time. BJ Penn again. Thiago Alves is okay, maybe not as good at defense. Dan Hardy was pretty solid. Ragdolled him repetitively. Josh Koscheck again. Jake Shields was pretty good. Condit, okay, yeah, he didn't have the best takedown defense ever. That is what it is. Nick Diaz, it is a pretty good win. Johnny Hendricks, okay. I mean, I know everyone likes to dispute that one, but he did out-wrestle Johnny Hendricks for most of the fight, so we're just talking about grappling. And then out-grappled Michael Bisping very easily as well. So that's not a bad resume by any means. Ankalaev versus Mirzakhanov. Dana White versus Francis Ngannou for UFC White House, so that would be fun. Asamad is really good, I just wish he was less active and pulled out less valid, yeah. Do you reckon Volkan Oezdemir has a chance of going on a title run if his management gets him fights like Reyes or Hill? I think he could work his way to a title shot. I don't think so. I think he's a little too old now, but there's a small chance. Yiza versus Konofsky prediction. Yiza decision. Ioana versus Hill, who wins? Hill. What exactly makes a fighter have more power when striking? Is it mass and athleticism or purely technique/skill? I mean, some of it is genetics, right? Like some people transfer weight more efficiently, they have different muscle fibers and so on. A lot of it is just understanding how to use kinetic chain properly, how to transfer your weight in the right directions at the right time. Myles Garrett versus the worst female fighter, strawweight, who wins? Probably Garrett. John Fitch was a can crusher. Let me relook at his resume. I mean, Diego Sanchez at the time is not a bad win. Thiago Alves is not a terrible win. He knocked out Thiago Alves. It's not like unimpressive. There are definitely some cans on here, I will say that. Saunders wasn't bad at the time. Thiago Alves again. Draw with BJ Penn. Okay, bad loss to Johnny Hendricks, fair. I wouldn't say he was a pure can crusher. I could definitely say he has a slightly weaker resume, but I wouldn't say he's a can crusher. Which fighter do you think has the coolest nickname? I always forget nicknames, to be honest, so hard to say. Rongju versus Selkill, the early predictions. I think Rongju could knock him out. Yan versus Hill. I'd lean Yan, but he always makes me nervous. What's the key to catching Khabib? You have to put combinations together and catch him when he's backing up. How does O'Malley versus Song go? Any chance for Song? There's definitely a chance for Song. I just think O'Malley's probably just a bit too good. Pound for pound, Joanna TKO's Hill volume. I don't know if it's a hot take. I mean, pound for pound, sure. Yeah, agreed. Do you think I assume you mean Aslan, realistically does better at heavyweight? Like he swings hooks like a madman, has power, he could crush some cans. He could definitely crush some cans, but the moment he got so indecent, he'd get slapped. Who are some of the smartest fighters in the UFC right now? John Silva for sure. DDP. Probably Volk in some capacity. Taporia. Rongju is honestly pretty underrated. I'm glad to see you're not counting him out. Yeah, he's definitely very underrated. I hope Song wins. Fair enough. Do you think Yoel Romero could beat anyone at middleweight near the rankings if he came back? Let me look at the rankings. I mean, he might be able to beat Gregory Rodriguez. I could see it. What do you think went wrong with DDP's camp? I think they were too reliant on Chimaev gassing himself out. How do you rate Diego Lopez's chance versus Volk? I don't see any improvements in his fight versus Sean versus the first Volk fight. I still think you have to pick him. Because the reality is that Volk is only going to slow down from here. Lopez, even if he's making very, very small improvements, he's only getting better. And he could have finished him in the first fight had things gone slightly differently. So it's like, you have to... Yeah, I think you just have to pick Lopez, to be honest. Hill cannot beat anyone in top 10 of light heavyweight. He's the absolute worst former champion ever. The only thing that makes me nervous for Jan there is the way he was leaning back in his last fight. But hopefully he'd beat Hill. Messi or Ronaldo, I don't know. I don't know soccer well, sorry. Hill versus Jan. I'd pick Jan, but not too confidently. Have you seen Sterling's reactions to the Merab fight? I honestly don't think he thought Merab was up 3-2. He's got to be lying for his boy. Okay. I will say something. I do think it was a slightly closer fight than people are making it out to be. I do think that Jan definitely won. But if you really wanted to argue Merab winning, I feel like you could. Because Merab, it really depends, in my opinion, on how you prioritize submission attempts. Because if you want to say that a close submission attempt is very heavily prioritized, which technically by the rules it is, it makes round 4 very close. I still think Jan won it, but I could see the argument. Early Super Bowl predictions? I mean, Seahawks are looking pretty good. Do you think Volk's fight IQ is slightly overrated? So many fights he's shown weaknesses to the head kick and still isn't adjusted. I think it's a little bit overrated, yeah. I don't understand why everyone acts like Jamal Hill is a can aside from not liking his personality. I still feel like he could beat someone like Ankalaev or maybe Lunch Delusional. I don't think he could beat Ankalaev at this point. Like, he looked really bad his last fight, but I don't think he's a can either. I'd still think he would beat a lot of light heavyweights. Azamat versus Ulberg. Like, Azamat's striking, but Ulberg has good reaction time, especially for light heavyweight. I'd lean Azamat, but yeah, it's hard to say. Volk with power would be unstoppable. I mean, he still definitely has defensive flaws, but he would definitely be better. How do you see Lopez versus Evloev, Murphy, and John? I think Lopez would beat Evloev, lose to Murphy, and lose to John. The guillotine run for was nowhere close to being a real threat. I don't know why you'd say that. It looked pretty much fully sunk in. Besides Vegas and Florida, what's the best US state for MMA? That's tough to say. I mean, New York isn't bad. I'm not sure if it would be the best. California has some decent gyms as well. I don't know what else, to be honest. Packers or Patriots winning Super Bowl? I don't think Packers. I could see Patriots, but I don't really think so either. What's funny is that Sterling thought they were up 3 by the 4th round. Yeah, I disagree with that. I think you have to give Jan the third piece the body kick. I thought Merab won at least 1 in the last 3 rounds. I thought it was 3-2 Jan, or maybe even 3-2 Merab. I was high-key shocked when it was 49-46, and everyone online was saying 50-45 Jan. Yeah, I do think people were exaggerating. I think Jan won a close 48-47. Saw someone say Yoel is the Chimaev's nightmare-style matchup. What do you think? Yeah, I agree. Does Moicano win ever again a ranked fight? I mean, if he gets Hooker, maybe. Well, he's not going to get Hooker because B is deeded. Never mind. Yeah, maybe not then. Rob didn't close the guard. You don't need a closed guard to finish a guillotine. Your favorite prospect right now? Good question. Honestly, I don't think there's anyone I'm crazy excited about right now. Maybe Rini Nakamura. He's the only like unranked fighter I could think of who I'm kind of excited about. Money Moicano can't afford to lose. Apparently he could last time. Sterling versus Mobzar rematch prediction. I'd still pick Mobzar, to be honest. I want to train out of Georgia, but the gyms aren't that level. That's unfortunate, yeah. Merab or John at 145, because I thought Merab would win a week ago. I could see John taking it. Any countries do you think are going to go on a crazy short-term run like Georgia as of recent? Not really, to be honest. I think that's like a exceptional outlier. Ilya versus Islam at 170 prediction. Ilya round 1 TKO. You don't like Ko? No, I like Ko. That's fair. He is unranked. I didn't think about that for some reason. I might still say Rinya over him, but yeah, Ko would probably be second then. What makes a fighter's chin good? Is it genetics or other factors? It's a lot of genetics, yeah. Let's in Vallejos, he's super good. I think he's too small for featherweight. I think he will hit Royval eventually. I don't think it's necessarily about his size, but I do think he needs to change up how he defends, because constantly slipping in the same direction is definitely a recipe for getting caught eventually. The runner or Evloev. Murphy. Van or Jan predictions. I'd lean Van. Silva versus Yoel. Do you think Ko will win that fight that just got announced? I'm leaning towards him, yeah. Do you think the first Sterling Evloev fight was a robbery? I thought Evloev won a close but cleared fight. No, I agree with you. I think Evloev won a close but clear fight. Bro, tough he is. Merab body being so weak is crazy. Yeah, that is true. How is Georgia on short-term run? They have a double champ and a guy who just lost to the belt. They're still on a run. I think he just meant, is anyone going to match that? I don't think he meant like it's a short-term run for them. Do you think we'll ever see Ilya versus Islam? I think we will eventually. Patty genuinely mauls Gaethje will not be close. Yeah, I agree there. Who's winning 2026 FIFA World Cup? That I have no idea. I thought Evloev edged that fight too. Yeah, agreed. Jan versus Ilya, who takes it? Weight aside, if it to play a factor. If we're taking weight aside and not assuming it's 135, then Ilya would kill him. If you could only pick 3 strikes to have fundamentally perfect, which would you choose? Jab. Jab, calf kick, and the third could either be cross or overhand. It's hard to say. Aljo versus Umar. That's a tough one. I might lean Aljo. Holloway TKOs Oliveira, sadly, like 90%. Your thoughts? Any hope for us? I wouldn't say 90%. I would lean Holloway TKO, but there's definitely a chance Oliveira subs him. Champ predictions for end of 2026. This question is harder than ever with the champ turnover rate as of recent. Yeah, no, it's very hard. I'm going to say at flyweight, Tyra, at bantamweight. You know, I'm going to take a long shot and say bantamweight. No, I'm going to say bantamweight's Merab. 145. I'm going to say Silva at 145. At 155, I'm going to say 155 is the real question. I have no idea. 170, I'm going to say Ilya. 185, I'm going to still lean Chimaev. 205, I think that Alex would have vacated or retired by then. So I'm going to say... I'm going to tentatively say Yuri. And then heavyweight, I'm going to say Pereira. Who wins between Van and Tyra? Leaning Tyra. Prime Jan versus Prime Volk. I'd lean Volk. Crosby's Oracle's Southpaw. True. Do you reckon we'll ever see Hamzat fight twice in a year as champ? I don't think so. I feel like we've entered the modern age of UFC where it's going to be extremely hard for fighters to get multiple title defenses. That is fair. Do you think Oliveira's chin is as bad as people say? It's not great. Umar versus Alexandre Topuria, assuming Alexandre has a few more fights and improves. If we're saying he has a few more fights, then I'd take Alexandre. Oliveira was getting hit too easily from Gamrot and pressuring him. I can't imagine what Max would do. To be fair, I think he just realized he could take Gamrot strikes and just started ignoring them. Ilya champ at 170 would be crazy. Yeah, I think it will happen though. Ilya or DDP? I lean Ilya. How do you make adjustments mid-spar? It's always hard to take yourself out of the moment. It's just practice. Do a lot of flow sparring. You'll get used to it. Hamza versus Alex at 205. I'd lean Alex, to be honest. Ilya versus Pratos, who takes it? I'd lean Ilya. Poton versus Aspinall, KO sub decision. I'd take Alex by TKO. When Max lands on Charles, Charles will die. He dropped Dustin with like the first combo. It's possible, but also if Charles ragdolls him and subs him before that, it can happen. I am leaning Max, to be clear, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. Ulberg versus Chimaev or Ulberg versus Ankalaev. I'd probably take Ulberg in both. We need a cheating video on Islam and other cage grabbers. You can conveniently leave out Leon for me. Yeah, we do need it for Islam for sure. What do you think of Murphy's fight IQ? It's pretty solid. Weird question. Could Ilya be a ranked middleweight? Yeah. What was your favorite year for the UFC? I'd have to look back, but it's probably like one of the, probably like 2016, 2017 range. I think we're going a bit overboard in the Ilya glaze. We're not going overboard enough. How much fight footage do you watch before making one of your reels? It depends how ingrained the idea is in my head. If I have like a very clear idea of what I want to say, then I just have to pull the footage for it. If I don't know what I want to say, well then I have to watch hours of film. Another hot take, Armin beats Ilya. I don't think Ilya can defend takedowns from Armin. Was wrestling ground pound. I mainly think he wins, maybe board decision. I'm very confident in the otherwise. I think Ilya would sleep him within 2 minutes. Armin's striking defense is still abysmal. I don't know if he even survives the first exchange, to be honest. How does Ilya realistically KO Islam in round 1? Islam is predictable, yes, but he takes very little risk and doesn't brawl and goes for takedowns. I don't see it, am I wrong? So Islam is very easy to push backwards. If you throw a combo at him starting with a straight punch, he just puts his hips behind his legs and moves straight backwards. He throws one counter hook and then kind of stops defending afterwards. Ilya would just do the same thing he did against Volk. He would just push him backwards, slip the first counter hook, and then flatline him. Is the dream of Jan getting the belts back over? Unfortunately, probably, yeah. I remember when you predicted Pantoja champ at 125 and 135. Sad how MMA works out. Yeah, that was unfortunate. Ilya versus Tom Aspinall. Probably Ilya. Jan versus Lopez predictions. I think I'd lean Jan. Would you consider doing Dong Hyun Kim an underrated fighter of his time? He was solid. I would say he's underrated in the sense that like no one really knows him and probably should know him a little bit more. I don't think he was crazy exceptional, but he was solid for sure. We're not going overboard enough and saying. Is there a fighter in UFC right now or all time that beats Ilya? I think McGregor is a very bad matchup for him in his prime. Is Ilya your favorite to bet on? I mean, he's usually a massive favorite, so not necessarily, but he's been good. You've been hanging around me too long, fair. Jan versus O'Malley, 5 rounds. I'd lean O'Malley. How does 5'7" Ilya land a punch on 6'5" Aspinall? He doesn't have to land a punch to the head early. He could just either abuse the body or the legs. You would say Armin's boxing defense is worse than Oliveira's? Yeah. Why don't you like the long guard? Because it's harder to react to things when you're in the long guard. It doesn't give as much coverage defensively, and it doesn't give you offensive options either. So I feel like it's just not a good... I just don't think it's useful. First exchange seems crazy. I mean, let's just put it this way. If the fight happens, I'm going to bet on Ilya in the first 60 seconds, Ilya in under half a round, and Ilya round 1. If Islam gets a hold of Ilya, will Ilya be able to defend realistically? Can he stand up from bottom? Can he defend takedowns? I think he can defend the takedown better than JDM. I think that Ilya's stature works in his advantage there, because it's going to be a lot more easy for him to down block takedowns than it would be for JDM. 145 counter was actually special. Agreed, yeah. I feel like if Marina Rodriguez had just a purple belt level grappling, she would have been champ. Her striking was so good, but her takedown defense was so bad, she never got off her back. Fair. It's possible. Why is Ilya so good? Mainly his cage cutting. He has very intelligent cage cutting. Conor versus Silva. I'd lean Silva. One Aspinall calf kick would be a head kick to Ilya. Yeah, but Aspinall's too slow to really catch it. Ilya versus John Silva. I slightly lean Ilya, but I could see John Silva taking him. Do you think there's an objective best striking base for MMA, boxing, karate, kickboxing, karate, Muay Thai, etc.? No, I don't think so. I think they all have their strengths and weaknesses. Oliveira was actually handling Ilya with the clinch like a small baby. I don't know how he would hold up to Islam's strength. I don't agree with that because Oliveira couldn't get anything from it. So even though he got to the underhooks, if he couldn't convert it into anything, that's more of a compliment to Ilya than a detriment then. Seeing Armin get tagged by hooks multiple times, Ilya would eat him alive. Yeah, exactly. He would not survive long. Are you going to be tuning into the Horizon NYE event? When is it? I'll have to see when it is if I can. How would Ilya do against Francis Ngannou? I take most good lower weight fighters over heavyweights. Let's just put it that way. Thoughts on Bekzat future? I still think he could be good. It's just they put him in a bad spot by giving him like 2 very tough matchups. Pound for pound Oliveira versus Izzy, Pereira, and Strickland. Pound for pound Oliveira is definitely better. I feel like fighters should approach Ilya like a boxer. He makes the same weaknesses and can't defend kicks well. I mean, boxing with Ilya is not easy. I do think you need to counter him, though. Yes, I agree with that. 12:31 Japan time. I'll have to see then. Do you think if I trained really hard, really hard for 3 days, I could beat Ilya? I mean, you might give yourself at least a 0.1% chance. If Armin fights Ilya, will Armin get flatlined before having the chance to wrestle? Yeah, very likely. Do you think Silva got overzealous against Lopez? I feel like Silva had that fight after surviving the first round. Lopez in the round, considering it's probably the worst case scenario. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we saw him like literally winging overhands so badly that he was falling off balance every time he threw. It was pretty bad. Ilya could sleep Armin with the first punch, and Connor and Daggy Glazers would still call him overrated and a fraud. True. Who is the worst former champion? Is it Hill or Leon? I'd say probably Hill, but Leon's up there. Yeah, I think people greatly overestimate the difference of weight classes. Yeah, exactly. Anyone who's seen open weight knows it doesn't matter that much. If the average man landed a clean hook on Ilya, would Ilya go to sleep? No. Ilya becomes the first double champ. He is the GOAT. I think you mean triple champ, but yes. Volk versus Movzar, Lopez and Murphy, who wins? Anyone beats Movzar. He's not that good. But Lopez and Murphy, I mean, I'd probably pick Lopez over Volk. Yeah, I will be picking Lopez over Volk, I should say. But I think I'd pick Volk over Murphy. That is going to KO Justin Gaethje. Trust. I could see it on the ground. Nunes versus Kayla. I think you have to lean Kayla at this point. Does Aljo beat any top 5 145er right now, and not counting Ortega? Probably not, to be honest. Alright, I am probably going to end the stream here. This is not the best card, but if you are watching, I hope you enjoyed the card. Appreciate you all being here, and we will continue to do streams throughout December. I'll figure out what we're going to do them exactly on. But I do definitely want to start upping the quality of streams, adding more visuals, stuff like that. So I will see you guys soon. Thank you for coming. Have a good night, everyone. And if you're betting on this card, best of luck.